Feast TV is presented by Missouri Wine. Welcome to the June episode of Feast TV, where we bring the pages of the magazine to life. The June episode is all about making summer in St. Louis tons of fun, and we're going to be taking you all over the region this time. We're going to introduce you to the woman behind ReTrailer at Tower Grove Farmers Market. We're going to take a trip up Route 66 for a bite of nostalgia. Then it's over to Sanctuaria, where Matt Seiter is going to make the perfect mojito. Then in Millstadt, Illinois, you'll meet an old-fashioned artisan butcher. And then we're going to wrap things up in the forest, foraging for this risotto's secret ingredient. Now, risotto is one of my favorite things to make, but it's actually very, very simple. A lot of people are intimidated by it because they think they're gonna mess it up if they aren't stirring it constantly, but I'm gonna show you a foolproof way to make risotto, and believe me, you will love it. We'll be using morel mushrooms, fresh English peas, roasted garlic, and this. And you might be wondering what this is, but I'm not gonna tell you quite yet. You'll find out when we wrap up the show. So before I start cooking, why don't we meet Lisa Gavro, who's behind ReTrailer, which you'll find in Tower Grove Farmers Market.
The ReTrailer started when I had a 5-pound box of turmeric delivered to me from Hawaii, and I started experimenting with the turmeric and came up with this beautiful tea. And I decided that I wanted to be able to share this wonderful turmeric tea with everyone. The ReTrailer is parked at the Tower Grove Market every Saturday. So you can come into the mobile store, shop around, and have a cup of tea. I think of pop-up retail as cute little mini business incubators. And so we're taking niche ideas that we're not sure are ready for brick and mortar or could be supported by a brick and mortar business and testing them on the St. Louis community. Our businesses are really niche, and so people seek us out to have a one-of-a-kind, unique retail experience. But once they come to our trailers or our mobile shops, then they end up making a day of it in our host neighborhood. The attraction to St. Patrick's Center, number one, was the business support that they offer and the service of the full commercial kitchen that you see here. The ReTrailer I always will have my turmeric tea either iced or hot, depending on the weather. And I also have a line of sweet balls, and they're basically what I call hippie cookies. Turmeric is often used as a natural food coloring, or you'll find it oftentimes in Eastern Indian food. But it's a rhizome similar to ginger, and it has this beautiful orange color. And turmeric I refer to as like superfood medicine because it's anti-inflammatory, it's great for digestion, and amazing liver support. So turmeric is a really mild floral herb. It has a really sweet floral aroma to it. But the turmeric tea at the end is really spicy. And so I add ginger, black pepper, and cinnamon. The recipe was a series of trial and error where I basically stained my kitchen counter orange for about 2 months. So the last step to the process is adding the tulsi, or otherwise known as holy basil. The flavor profile is sort of like a mix between mint and basil. What I really love about the turmeric tea is it's showing people that healthy foods can taste good. And then sweeten just a tad with local honey. And there you go. I'm so taken with the St. Louis community. St. Louisans are so supportive of local. And working with other small businesses, everyone is so collaborative and supportive, and we all just want each other to succeed. And so it's just the most beautiful community I could have found myself in.
The thing about risotto is that you need to cook everything before you start the rice itself. And so we're going to go ahead and saute these morel mushrooms. These morels were foraged by Ryan Maher, who we're going to introduce you to later on in the episode. Now, morels, if you've never seen a fresh one, they're entirely hollow. It's very cool, and they're absolutely beautiful. They come in all different shapes and sizes. Now, if you can't find fresh morels, don't worry. You can find them dry throughout the year at a grocery store. You just have to reconstitute them in a little bit of water. I'm gonna go ahead and saute these morel mushrooms in a little bit of olive oil. And while I'm doing that, why don't we take a road trip up Route 66?
My family's history with Cozy Dog started with my grandfather, Ed. He was the one that came up with the idea of the Cozy Dog and helped develop it into what it's become today. The first Cozy Dog restaurants were started, or actually they were called Cozy Huts, were back in the early 50s. Our original restaurant was actually located next door to this location. This current building was put up in 1996, so we actually moved to the north about 200 feet. My grandmother developed the Cozy Dog logo. She actually came up with the name Cozy Dog also. She didn't like my grandfather's names, and the one he was trying to push the most and get stuck was Krusty Kerr. He came up with a bunch of little slogans. Can't just have one cozy calls for another, the GI hot dog. You know, he did some minor testing on the Army bases, you know, that's how they got the flavor and everything, and it was a big hit. That was one of the reasons he called it a GI hot dog. Our Cozy Dogs are pretty unique. My grandfather worked with a baker friend at the time when he first started developing them, and they were sending batters and mixes back and forth to get the flavoring right. My grandfather developed a rack, is what we call it. It's a holder, which we insert the stuck hot dogs so we can dip them in the batter. And originally he started with one that cooked up to around 9 dogs at a time, and it was, you know, pretty huge for the fryers at the time, and it worked, and then it slowly developed and transformed over the years, and now we have it down to a 3-dog on a rack system. Route 66 has become a big part of our business and our place here, and the biggest part of it is just due to the travelers. You know, they love the old type of restaurants which we have, and they remember just hanging out and just enjoying life, and that's the whole thing about Route 66 is just visiting with friends, meeting new people, and this is one of the places where you can do that. Tons of different landmarks and sites are trying to help tell their story to help keep the spirit of the road alive from how it used to be, because back then it was just a 2-lane road. You'd actually see the people when you pass. You lose that personal connection now on our roadways, which back then it was a social event. My Uncle Bob was a traveling artist on Route 66. One of the things Bob always mentioned about Route 66 were the travelers that he met. He always told us, you know, every day could be different. You never know who you're going to run into and what kind of stories they'll have. One of the fun items we have here in our restaurant is one of the original Cozy Dog signs that used to sit out on top of our road sign. And what makes it neat is it's made out of plywood. My grandfather Ed and actually my Uncle Bob, they're the ones that put it together. Grandpa built it and Bob painted it. And some of the memories I have over the years is, you know, watching it fade and us taking it down, repainting it. I remember him doing it at least 2 or 3 times. My grandfather Ed, after he got up in age, he did a radio interview, and one of the things he mentioned on there was, you know, he would rather work in a restaurant making $10 an hour than working in an office building making $30 an hour, because he liked the interaction with people. He wanted to be around people. It wasn't about the money for him. It was the connection he can make with customers.
Now I'm going to show you a little bit about the rest of the ingredients for the dish. One of the stars of the show in any risotto is wine. Risotto is one of the dishes that incorporates wine almost throughout it. And this is a Vidal Blanc from Stonehill, which is located in Herman, Missouri. Vidal Blanc is a really lovely wine, and as you probably know, you should use wine that you actually want to drink in the dishes that you're cooking. So Vidal Blanc has this wonderful kind of grapefruit quality to it, a lot of citrus, and that acidity is something that we're going to want to cut through the richness of the risotto itself. This is just roasted garlic, super easy to do. 325, wrap the garlic in a little bit of tin foil with some olive oil, salt, pepper, 20 minutes or so, and that's what you get. Very, very easy. And then these are fresh peas. If you have to use frozen, it's okay. But if you can find fresh English peas in the store or at your farmer's market, they are wonderful. The other ingredients for the dish, a little bit of Parmigiano Reggiano that I already have shredded so that I don't have to shred it later in the process. Obviously the arborio rice, and then an onion. I'm gonna show you a trick. If you remember the shallot trick from last episode, that's exactly how we're going to attack our onion. So you just cut it in half, cut off the end, leaving the root end intact. All you wanna do is peel back this first layer of onion, again, leaving that root intact. Lay it flat on your cutting board, take your knife, parallel to the cutting board, run it through. Make sure that you don't cut through this root end. It's critical that it stays intact so that none of it falls apart during the chopping. Now here, we're just cutting straight down in whatever size you want your dice to be. And then, see how it just all falls apart in a perfect dice? And you don't have to chase your onion around the cutting board. It is so much easier, and there's very, very little waste. There you go. Could not be simpler. I'm gonna go ahead and saute these onions, and while I do, go ahead and meet up with Matt Seiter for a perfect mojito.
Folks, how we doing? Matt Seiter from Sanctuaria here. Today we're gonna learn about the mojito. In my studies, the mojito has a lot of different shapes and forms. No one is right, no one is wrong. It just kind of depends on how you like your mojito. Some of the earliest found recipes are from the 1940s. There are a couple of books that I kind of go back to. One of them, David Embry's Fine Art of Mixing Drinks. Basically, David says a mojito is just a rum Collins with a mint garnish. So if you were alive in the 40s, this is what you would get. You would simply get a little bit of white rum, and you're gonna get a little bit of lemon juice, actually, back in the 40s. Every one of the 40s recipes has lemon juice, no lime. Top that off with ice. Just a little shake. So, you're back in 1942, you walk into a bar. The bar actually knows how to make a mojito, has heard of a mojito before. This is what you get. Rum Collins, rum, lemon juice, simple syrup, mint garnish. What I'm gonna show you, if I was at home in my backyard, this is how I would make my mojito. Normally, you would call for a white rum. In my mojitos, I prefer darker rums. I like a little bit of age. Like I say in the past, if it's brown, I'm down. I like the browns. I like to use them a lot. Fresh lemons, no pre-squeezed juices. Cut your lemons or limes in half. Your sugar in this, sugar cube. Put that in your glass, add a little bit of water. You just take your muddler, dissolve your sugar. This is like adding simple syrup to it. You just want that little bit of dilution in there. Take my cut fruit. I'm just gonna squeeze that right into the drink. From there, I'm gonna grab some mint. Now you can buy mint in the store, you may have mint in your backyard. You don't really want to be picking each an individual mint leaf. Find where your garnish is. My garnish is going to start there. Take your fingers, wrap it around, simply pull. Now from here, you can do it whatever way you want. I like a light muddle. I still want the leaves to hold their shape, but I just want to release those oils. Take my brown, add that in, crushed ice. Again, I'll take my tin, give it just a little bit of a shake. By not muddling the crap out of that mint, you can do this, and you've got that mint flowing all throughout the drink. It's its own garnish, if you will. Since I put a lot of rum in here, I'm gonna put a lot of club soda. I will be drinking these in the afternoon, and I do want to make it through the evening. Spanking the mint, real simple. If you've got that much of a stalk, simply spank it. That just opens up the oils. I can smell it right here. This is how I would serve my mojito in my backyard. Enjoy.
So we're back, and the trick with the onions is that you don't want them to brown. You just want to make them slightly translucent, and they're looking pretty darn good. This is the point where you actually add the rice. Arborio rice is an Italian variety that creates a creamy texture to the risotto, and that is what makes it so luxurious and wonderful. So I've just added a cup and a half. This is available in pretty much any grocery store, by the way. It's very easy to find. Once you have your rice in your pan, you just stir to coat the rice with the oil and get it all mixed in with the onions. The trick to risotto is really just stirring and making sure, like I said, that everything is ready before you start this part. Now we're gonna deglaze the pan with that wine. This is vegetable broth that I have simmering. The other trick to risotto is having that broth that you're going to be continually ladling into the risotto and stirring so it's incorporated. It needs to be simmering so it doesn't lower the temperature of the risotto, and it's always kind of at that hot point where it's absorbing the liquid into the grain. Wine goes in with the broth as well. So do you see how fast the wine was absorbed into the grains? The reason why you want to stir your risotto constantly, twofold. Number one, you want to aerate the rice basically so that you get more of the flavor incorporated into those grains. Also, it just keeps everything from sticking. So what we're going to do is we're going to ladle in half cups of broth and wine at a time, stirring to incorporate until the rice is finished. And I can't tell you exactly when that's gonna be. It'll probably be about 20 minutes or so. You just have to watch the risotto, taste the risotto, and you'll know when it's done. And while I'm ladling and stirring, I want to take you to Millstadt, Illinois to meet a butcher who is taking hogs all the way from slaughter to the butcher case.
35 years ago, the wife was pregnant with our first daughter, and I was working at a packing company in Belleville, Illinois, and kind of seen that they were going to be closing down. So we decided, well, we'll open up a butcher shop here in town. We'll slaughter cattle and hogs in the wintertime, do custom processing. First 7 years in a row, we added on every year to what we are today. A lot of our customers today came in here 30 years ago, and I'd give them a hot dog out of the smokehouse, and now they got children and they're bringing their children in. I enjoy doing the sausage. I enjoy making different kinds, going into the smokehouse and yanking a wiener off and eating it fresh out of the smokehouse. We actually have people come in and know we make these on Tuesday and wait up front to get them. We want some right out of the smokehouse. You got any ready yet? Oh no, it's still 121. We got to cool them down to 100, so they got to come back then again. We're getting ready to cut this hog up and turn him into primals, which will be your butts, your loins, your ribs, your pork steaks, your ham. So we're gonna take big pieces and turn him into little pieces. You separate your shoulder. The way it is right now, it's a New York shoulder. So when we separate the Kaldi from the butt, there you have your Kaldi, and this will be your pork butt, where your pork steaks come out of. Now we're going to take this butt and we're going to cut it with this bone and cut it this way, and that'll be all your bone-in pork steaks. This, what I'm trimming right now, is your fresh leg. It's not a ham till it's cured. Right now it's a fresh leg. Nice part about this, when people come in and buy this, it's so fresh. These animals were alive yesterday. Now this is that Kaldi, which now we're going to net this and it'll become a boneless roast. This is your fresh side now with your rib in your belly. So we take this rib out of here. There's your spare ribs. And then this right now is a fresh side until we cure it, and then it becomes bacon. And these are your pork loins before they're trimmed. So there's your trimmed pork loin. This is your tenderloin right in here. These are where your baby back ribs come from. Right here, those ribs. Now that's ready to be cut into pork chops. So pretty quickly you can take a hog and cut him down into all your different cuts. We slaughter them, they go into a scalding and a deherring machine. They come out of there, they go into a gambling table and put a gamble in them like this. And then we hang them up with a hoist and singe them, then eviscerate them and split them. I slaughter them. We don't bring them in here to torture them. You kill an animal under stress, the muscles pull together and they hold together and they stay together. Bring him in and slaughter them. We don't, there's no sticks, no hitting, no nothing. There isn't many of these mom and pop stores left. You go to Beardstown and they're killing 20,000 head of hogs in a day. It's just a numbers game. We're here, we need quality. I can control everything. You got a problem with your product, you can call up here and I'm the one that's gonna get the call. 45 years ago, me and my dad used to, if your dad had a farm and you had 3 head of cattle and you wanted them slaughtered, we would come out to your place on a Saturday. After we got done slaughtering that animal, we would carry it into your butcher shop. Your dad would cut up his own beef himself and we would leave and go to the next farm. And a lot of these farmers I knew when I was little. People want to sell cattle or hogs or whatever, they call me up. And I know them before they get here. I don't need to go to the farm and look at that animal. I know what he feeds. I know he doesn't feed any hormones or steroids or additives. The guy's boars and sows are out in a pasture, and it makes for a whole lot better pork. A lot of people tell me, I want to know where it comes from, but I don't want to know how it gets there. You know, I don't want to know how you slaughtered this animal, what you had to do to it, on and on and on. I've got no problem with that. As long as they don't turn into a vegetarian, I'm fine. Me and vegetarians have very unbelievable conversations. This industry has changed a whole lot just in the fact that I believe that 35 years ago it was more volume. Today we're doing more things like nitrite-free bacon, nitrite-free ham, gluten-free fresh products. We always did a lot of natural casing products, but we're doing a lot more than that. It's being enforced more. I can remember a time when lard was a big no-no. Now it's getting to the point where a lot more people are starting to cook with lard again. It's funny, and it just runs a big circle. I've been in it so damn long, I've seen the whole circle go already.
We have reached that right point where the rice is al dente but not too mushy. And there's really no trick other than looking at the rice and tasting it. I'm gonna finish this off. I want the texture to be slightly loose, so I'm gonna finish this off with the rest of my broth. And again, just eyeball it. This is why you cook everything ahead of time. This is finished. It's time to add in our morels, those really lovely blanched peas. It's gonna add a little pop of texture as well as color and sweetness, because our secret ingredient has something of a pungent, bitter flavor to it. One more thing I'm adding in is our roasted garlic. I love this stuff. Once it's roasted, it's so easy to just kind of squeeze out of its little packets. This is incredibly good for you too. And again, there's a sweetness in here, and I very intentionally am amping up the sweet flavor to counteract what's over my shoulder over there. So to find out what that pungent mystery ingredient is, take a look at this next segment. So, how did you learn how to identify all these plants?
It seems like it's something that has been lost over the generations. Like, people will talk about their grandparents and great-grandparents doing this, and it's lost. There you go. Out of any wild green, it's the most nutritional wild green ever analyzed.
Wow.
It actually has omega-3 fatty acids, protein, magnesium, vitamin A, E, C. It's huge.
That's amazing.
So this plant essentially kills mushrooms and then trees die. So not only is it killing all this,
Yeah.
but it's killing, 200-year-old trees.
Teaching people what is invasive and what that even means is part of the, part of what we can do to fix it. There's dock for miles.
This is happy. Like,
Yeah.
it's good we're not seeing all this garlic mustard. That's a native species. Yeah, so we'll cook some of this. There's the garlic mustard.
Hey, there you go.
We'll get some from the hills. This is all covered with sand.
So what happens if left unchecked? I mean, what happens if we don't pull all this stuff out, if we don't control it?
Once it goes to seed, these seeds sit there and they either get picked up in your shoes and put in your car tires, or it goes somewhere and it gets on, another big river and keeps going.
Well, let's go up on the bluff and see what we find there.
People want to do this kind of stuff, as long as they're doing it in a mindful fashion where it's not detrimental to the environment. Yeah, you're doing a great thing. You're going out, you're hiking, you're getting food, and it's free.
Now, are there any other plants like the garlic mustard that are edible and also invasive?
Yeah, there's a handful, but a lot of them don't have the culinary value that garlic mustard does.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
And it's just right in the wash. where all the water runs down.
Oh, there's tons of it.
Yeah.
Wow. So should we grab a bunch of it?
Yeah.
And when you pull them out, I mean, how careful do you have to be not to break the roof?
It pulls out pretty easily.
So if somebody wanted to learn about foraging, what would you suggest that they do? I mean, like, what books should they read? What classes should they attend?
Get any book you can find. You know, you don't ever want to go off one source. You know, get a bunch of different books. But ultimately, it's getting your feet dirty and getting out there, you know? If you care about something enough, everything else will come behind it. Figure out what you're going out to look for. Pick one thing, and then other stuff, like, pick it, take it home, and learn about it.
You know, logically, it makes sense that our ecosystem would be built in balance, but until it goes out of balance, you don't really think about it. You take it for granted.
Everything was fine until we learned how to move around,
Yeah.
you know?
So what I love is that we've taken an invasive species, something that's threatening, and we've turned it into something that's nutritious and that we can actually enjoy. And I'm sure that people that are watching this are going to be really turned on by that idea. So what advice can you give to people that might want to get into it?
Contact the person who manages the area, and more than likely, they'll love to educate you on where you can go. It's one of the few things, like, you can't go out and have somebody tell you where morels are, but they'll actually tell you where the garlic mustard is and let you know how they want you to pick it.
Okay, but we can all do our part to help eradicate it and then enjoy the
And
fruits of our labor.
More importantly, you don't ever want to plant it in your yard. So yeah, get it out there and enjoy it, and it's something new and fun.
Awesome, I can't wait to see it on restaurant menus. All right, so that garlic mustard, here we go. We've washed and spun our greens, and then all I'm gonna do is rip these guys up and sprinkle them into the risotto. Normally, I'll put arugula or some other green in at the very end because it doesn't need to be fully cooked. It just kind of wilts in there, and it's a wonderful way to add kind of a green, bright flavor. And so the garlic mustard really adds, again, that pungent garlic bitterness, which is wonderful. So we're just stirring that in. The risotto has a nice thick texture. The last addition is a good dose of Parmigiano Reggiano. Don't be shy with this because it adds a lot of great salt and just wonderful cheesy flavor. I absolutely adore risotto. I'm gonna pour myself a glass of that Vidal Blanc to pair with it because obviously the wine that we used in the dish is gonna be the perfect pair for it out on the patio. I wanna thank our presenting sponsors, Missouri Wine, as well as our support from Kaldi's Coffee. Cheers.